Alrighty, let's pivot now to
Pivot.
the main topic for the show. Just as a warning, we will be diving into spoiler territory, but towards the end of the review, I have a spoiler label as well that I'll pop up on the screen. So
bless you, Shane. I wish all podcasts had that.
anyone joining will know that. I'll also edit the stream title to have spoiler warning in there as well. So anyone who's just hovering over it can see Spider-Man, they're reviewing it. Oh, but there's also spoilers, be warned. So anyway, but before we get into that, let's get to the deets of the film. Spider-Man No Way Home is a 2021 American superhero film based on Marvel Comics character Spider-Man, co-produced by Columbia Pictures and Marvel Studios and distributed by Sony Pictures Releasing. What a terrible name. It is a sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming 2017 and Spider-Man Far From Home 2019 and is the 27th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It feels like we've just increased the number by 3 in the last 2 weeks. The film was directed by John Watts and written by Chris McKenna and Eric Summers and stars Tom Holland as Peter Parker, Spider-Man, alongside Zendaya, Benedict Cumberbatch, Jacob Batalon, Jon Favreau, Jamie Foxx, Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, Benedict Wong, Tony Revolori, and Marissa Tomei, and a couple of others we won't name just yet. In the film, Parker asks Dr. Stephen Strange to make his identity as Spider-Man a secret again using a magic spell following its public revelation in Far From Home. But it breaks open the multiverse and allows 5 supervillains from alternate realities to enter Parker's universe. A third MCU Spider-Man film was planned during the production of Homecoming in 2017. By August 2019, negotiations between Sony and Marvel Studios to alter their deal in which they produced the Spider-Man films together ended, with Marvel Studios leaving the project. However, a negative fan reaction led to a new deal between the companies a month later. Watts, McKenna, Summers, and Holland were set to return at that time. Filming began in October of last year in New York City before moving to Atlanta that month and wrapping in March of this year. It premiered at Fox Village Theatre in LA on December 13th this year and was theatrically released in the United States on December 17th as part of Phase 4 of the MCU. It set several box office records and has grossed over $600 million worldwide, becoming the 6th highest grossing film of 2021. Audiences are loving this film. It currently has an impressive IMDb rating of 8.8 from 197,000 users, placing it in the site's top 250 films of all time at number 8. Above films such as Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump, Inception, and The Matrix, though we should probably expect the rating to drop as time goes on. Critics have also enjoyed the film with an average Metascore rating of 72. Important to note, 2 points below Wonder Woman. Rotten Tomatoes, gents. Tell me. The Metascore rating for Wonder Woman was 74. Just an FYI.
94.
Yeah, I'm 95.
94%. Ben nails it.
Everyone's always trying to screw me over with these Price is Right rules. And
well, I didn't want to just copy you. I thought you were right. I'm glad that you get the...
You could have got 93. Tied yourself to my score, but not
That's true.
triple my guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, 27th MCU film, gents. Terry, we did a lot of talking during our review of Departures, so I'm going to go to you, sir.
Appropriate. It is only appropriate. I felt... Okay, can I talk about the movie-going experience first?
Of course.
I missed maybe the first 30 seconds to a minute of the film because the cinema didn't expect a rush of people for this film after restrictions have completely been lifted. So, like, no need for masks, no need for check-ins. It's the biggest release of the year. It's probably the most beloved character in the MCU at the moment for the younger generation, and Armadale is a uni town, so it's like the cinema was packed, and so we didn't get into to the cinema straight away. Didn't hate that. I'm glad to have seen people coming out and patroning businesses and things. Did make me feel a little uncomfortable because I'm like, it just feels weird to all of a sudden not be required to wear a mask and be able to sit right next to random strangers who may have been licking COVID samples like immediately before. Anyway, I hate missing the first minute of any film, let alone a Marvel film. So I don't know exactly what I missed, but
Do you remember the first thing you saw?
It was Peter kind of blitzing through the apartment, trying to hide phones and things from Aunt May and Happy Hogan.
Yeah.
And so I'm fairly certain I didn't miss much, but I think that there was some type of interaction happening between him and Zendaya in his room, maybe, because and he's trying to have a conversation because, like, I think Happy Hogan and
and May,
Aunt May, like breaking up or something, but I'm not 100% sure if.
He essentially started exactly when the last one ended, when he's like watching the news break that he's been doxxed.
He's in like Times Square, and it's footage of Mysterio saying Spider-Man is Peter Parker,
and Spider-Man did all of the massacring and stuff. So yeah.
And Jonah Jameson is, hammering that across the airwaves. Zendaya's in Times Square with him, and she's getting harassed. Like, are you Spider-Man's girlfriend? He swings down, pulls her out of the crowd. They're starting to get rowdy and like start attacking them both. He swings away. News choppers are following them. They eventually make their way back in, and he climbs through the window with her after they've just escaped. And then that cuts to May trying to very politely break it off with Happy, saying it was a fling, and obviously Happy was just a lot more invested in this relationship than she was, and very upset. And then you walked in and sat down.
Okay, so I did miss a little bit, but that aside, I like that it dovetails perfectly with the previous film, because the previous film does end in that very big cliffhanger of like huge revelation for the world. And it's akin to the end of the first Iron Man movie, where in a press conference he makes that admission, but here it's not Peter Parker making that admission. He's being blindsided by it along with everybody else. I kind of feel like the movie has a little bit of a slow start. It doesn't, like, I'm not going to describe it as like limping, but it does get it's a little clunky in its establishing of Peter Parker's motive to approach Doctor Strange. I was kind of like, how is he going to deal with this public revelation at the end of the previous film? And they decided that this third film was going to be a multiverse film. And how do you pivot? How do you transition from the revelation of the previous film into that? And I think that it struggled a little bit to do so, because it doesn't really feel like a lot has happened to kind of get Peter to this point where he wants to make this decision to have magic, or to magic away his problem. I like that he's doing it for a really benevolent motive. He's not just trying to help himself. That's probably my only major gripe with the film, or not gripe, criticism of the film. A little bit slow to start, a little bit clunky in establishing the main character's motivations for ending up in the situation that he does. But very much a teenager thing to do. I love the interaction that he has with Doctor Strange, where he's like, I could call them to, like, that's a thing that I could do. It's like teenagers don't understand that they can make a phone call to try and dispute things. Get a discount on your bills. Like, you can call the company and ask for discounts. It's like, yes, you can. Don't be a dick about it.
I've been ranting about that kind of thing for ages, Terry. Like how, like, brunch is so expensive just because they will pay it. Like, they'll pay $20 for eggs.
Yeah, it's like you could definitely go places that don't charge that much for eggs, or order things that aren't that expensive. Anyway, I like that element. Very much an immature kid, and I will consistently and forever say that I kind of feel like the first Spider-Man trilogy, the Sam Raimi ones, and then the Amazing Spider-Man trilogy, they kind of captured two halves of the character of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, where the first trilogy really captured the nerdy genius side of Peter Parker, because he's really smart, really geeky, really dweeby. And then Simon Garfield's really witty, super funny, like quick with the clap back, but not necessarily the best demonstration of his smarts. And then Tom Holland, they've nailed the blend. He's super awkward in social situations. doesn't know what to do with his hands, and like he still has this like physical awkwardness that kind of makes me think of The Way Back, and Duncan's character, who's just so physically awkward. He just like doesn't know how to move his shoulders and his arms when he's walking. But like not to that extent with Peter Parker, but it just kind of makes me think of that awkward teen age bracket that he's in. And so they continue to crush that. He's still socially awkward, still doesn't know how to do things, and kind of makes decisions impulsively, half-cocked, not necessarily thinking about the implications. And consequences ensue as that often happens, but he rises to the occasion through the course of the film. I really enjoyed seeing the actors reprising their roles. In particular, seeing you said Willem Dafoe in the thing. We're just
we're covering villains in this portion.
Yeah, love the villains. Love seeing Otto Octavius. Really enjoyed seeing Willem Dafoe as Goblin, and I love that they didn't make the same mistake as that first Spider-Man movie, where you have this character actor, this powerhouse of Willem Dafoe. I think we even talked about this ages and ages ago. He has such an expressive face, and you put him behind this mask, and it's like, why would you do that? And within the first few interactions of this character on the film, he smashes the mask, and you just see Willem Dafoe's face through the entire movie, and you see like this crazy kind of smile thing that he does like as he's getting punched in the face. I love like that scene mirrors almost perfectly to when Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is punching him in the face, and like Green Goblin's like saying impressive, and then but like in this you can see him just kind of grinning crazily through the beating that Tom Holland's Peter Parker is giving him. It's mildly disturbing, but in a really enjoyable way, because it's like, okay, this dude's legit mad. He's crazy. He's insane, and he's very, very strong.
Such a great homage to Dark Knight as well.
Yeah.
Batman interrogating Joker. You can do nothing you can do with all your strength. Like just laughing as he's being punched. I love that homage. Yeah.
Totally love that. And like the, I don't know, the expedient way out is he's kind of Peter Parker's like looking for a shortcut to fix the problems, and decides that that's not the right way to do things. This movie shows it gives a lot of opportunity for the character to grow and mature, and he does, and I really, really like that. I don't have much else to say. Love the action sequences, really, really good. Some of the things were a little bit hammy, like the bridge scene where he's trying to talk with the Vice Chancellor about getting a second chance at MIT, and she almost dies, and her response at the end is like, that's not okay. That was uncool. I'm like, I don't like, that's not a believable human response to like what just unfolded in front of your eyeballs. Like, unless people are by this point so desensitized to like the existence of villains and superheroes and calamitous events unfolding in front of them, maybe they're a little bit inoculated against it. But
could be the case when half of humanity was blinked out of existence for 5 years.
True.
Yeah,
that's true. That is true. Point
some bloke rocks up with mechanical octopus arms and
and starts.
It's like, okay, how serious could this guy be?
It's like, the last guy was huge and snapped his fingers and half the world disappeared, or half the universe. Point taken. Nice riposte chain, but it does feel a little funky in that particular regard. I don't have really anything else to say. One little thing. Oh gosh, what's his name? That's not quite my tempo.
J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons.
J. Jonah Jameson.
As Jameson. I love how one of the first scenes you see him in the film, he's like in a really shitty home studio with like a green screen, and like he's essentially like this conspiracy theorist whack job, And then the next time you see him, he's in this like full-blown studio because everybody's like, "You're absolutely right. We're sorry that we didn't believe you that Spider-Man was a menace, but now you're catapulted into this like CNN anchor kind of position." It was interesting seeing that contrast. Yeah. I don't really have anything else to say.
Oh, good. We're into spoilers a bit more. We can expand upon that. Mr. Movies, 27th MCU film, sir. What are your thoughts?
I thought the smartest thing I could say, like to be a smartass, would be like, I just wish that I could be one of the people that forgot all about Peter Parker and Spider-Man when Doctor Strange was casting his magic spell or whatever that you were talking about in the synopsis. Why couldn't it be me? I didn't like this movie. I don't know. I didn't enjoy it. The JJJ thing was one of the things that I didn't understand. Like, okay, it's just okay. Let's loosen up. He's the only person that is the same casting for the same character, but from like a different reality, like from his original. Everyone else, I don't know.
It's a different person.
It's like they're all different, but yeah, he's the only one that because J.K. Simmons is the only person you could ever imagine playing Jameson as well as he did it. So
You're serious?
So thankfully they did that. And total props to you, Terry. I didn't even think about the demasking of the Green Goblin thing, which was totally a benefit to the film. Just getting rid of that. Get rid of that mask. Get the only really good actor in this movie to... Firstly, he's really the principled villain. Like, he's the main antagonist, I feel, and he gets a lot of screen time and a lot of lines, and he's just nails them all. He's just Willem Dafoe is just the best. I don't like the acting of almost anybody else in this movie. I don't gel with it at all. I don't understand why I don't love it. But one thing I really, really don't like, and I've got Caitlin to back me up on this one, so I think I might have a point, is Benedict Cumberbatch's American accent is very woody and terrible to get into believing anything he says. There's something like it's technically probably very accurate, but it's not the voice of a person. It's weird. I don't know what to say, except that whenever he uses it, it's the same one all the time, and it's bad. And I don't know what exactly it is about it that makes it bad, but it's not believable, and I don't hear a real person when he's talking. It sounds like he's a bad actor, but he's not a bad actor. He's just doing a bad voice of a person. So I don't love the Doctor Strange character. And that was compounded more by this, like, I felt the conversation in the writer's room happen where they're like, wasn't that great in the Avengers Infinity War where Spider-Man and Doctor Strange do this fun thing where they introduce themselves and he's like, oh, we're using our pretend names. I'm Spider-Man. Wasn't that a great gag? Let's just make that gag happen like again. Like that will be the only way that these two characters communicate, like have something together with. And it is. There's nothing that these guys bond over, except for how he refers to Doctor Strange. Like he either calls him Sir when he's in the doghouse and he's done something silly, or he says Stephen because he's done something really heroic and he's like, you can call me Stephen or whatever. And then the next time he calls him Stephen, he's like, call me Sir because you fucked up something or whatever. That's not funny. And it's not entertainment to me. I didn't enjoy any of it. And I was like, why are they doing this? Couldn't they find anything else for these characters to talk about except for how to address Doctor Strange? I just didn't love it. And the only other small thing that they have between each other is something that Doctor Strange just says to himself, where he's like, he's completing the spell and he thinks he's about to forget all about Spider-Man. So he says like, so long, kid, or something like that to himself. It's like, okay, great. That was better as a one-liner than all of the things that you've said to one another. So that was a big gripe for me. The foundation for the Doctor Strange and Spider-Man relationship in this film was completely not earned, in my opinion. So then everything all the fruit that sprouted from that tree, I didn't bite and I didn't enjoy. And that was the movie. I didn't love how both Wong and Strange are just like, Yeah. I gotta go. I gotta do other things. And they leave for the like. There's some important stuff, like some universe grounding, universe breaking stuff. Calamity is happening, and Doctor Strange is like, I gotta go. You do this. You see to it, or whatever. I'm out of here until Act Three. I'll see you in Act Three. Which was, it's just another thing. I just felt like I could feel the conversation in the writers' room where they're like, "This is too complicated. We've got multiple universes. We've got magic and tech. We've got this whole thing that they had to retcon right away with the whole Tony Stark angle, where he's got like this immense power from Stark Tech. Where he's talking to Friday or whoever his inner voice is in the suit in other films, and like working
Karen.
with Karen, right? And he's like interacting with Stark's network, and they just straight away I could tell that the writers are like, this is just too much. We have to retcon this out. We have to just put something in there to so. Like at the start, we just see like network unavailable. He's like, "Uh-oh, I'm gonna have to just do this myself," and then we never address it again. Things like that, which can be a good thing. Like, it is a good thing, but the fact that it has to happen makes me say, like, why does this movie exist? Like, this movie is too complicated. Like, let's not do it. Would have been the better approach, I think.
Yeah, the film, the concept and the premise of getting this film released, because it was based on fan backlash, I think that's where some of the responsibility for this is nested. The whole idea.
It wasn't necessarily like we've been bashing this script against the wall and nothing's coming out, so we're abandoning our post, and then the fans reacted. It was more like, we can't make the deal happen for where the money is going to go.
It's a contractual thing, like who's the credit? Yeah, who's in control here? We want this. So I was like,
that,
okay.
Yeah. To be honest, who's in control thing here results in who we're going to get to do the work, who we're going to hire to polish the script.
Yeah, who's paying for this production? What
direction are we going to take? Falls from that, and so to your point, Harry, you're probably right. That probably did play a big effect on how messy this seems to me. It seems messy,
and I don't think it's necessarily the only thing. It might not even be the biggest thing, but I think it is a contributing factor. One of the other things is the relationship between Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and the rest of the MCU has been through the conduit of Tony Stark and Stark Industries. So, like, he's brought into Captain America Civil War because Tony Stark needs the additional help. Like, he's like, this guy, he's young, he's impressionable, he's got skills, I can utilize this for like my own ends. He brings it in. They end up developing like a friendship and something of a mentorship relationship that gets fleshed out through the Infinity War and Endgame, and it's a huge deal. And then I kind of feel like the second Spider-Man film, the Long Way From Home,
Far From Home,
really hammers home a lot of that, the implications, the consequences of Tony Stark's death for this character who idolized Tony Stark. And without this anchor of Tony Stark in the MCU, the character of Spider-Man isn't really connected to any of the other ones, because, as I said, he's only here through this conduit of Tony Stark and Stark Industries. And the closest character that's after that would be Doctor Strange, because they spent some time on the spaceship before going to fight Thanos on is it Titan? No, he is a Titan. What's the name of the planet?
It's on Titan. It's a planet Titan.
Okay, right. Because they call Thanos the Mad Titan, so that makes sense. He's from the planet Titan. Anyway, so he is the next closest character. He is the character that's kind of central to the multiverse, because he's the Time Stone kind of person, Sorcerer Supreme, although he's not. So it makes sense that he would be the character, but I think that because they spent so much effort in the previous instances of Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the MCU, they've spent so much time in this insulated box of Tony Stark and Peter Parker, there isn't really any fleshed out foundation that they can rely upon. So they have to rely on these oh, wasn't it funny when they did this thing? This is one of the things they bonded over, and so we'll use it as the very weak hook that we have to.
I've got one more argument that you guys may be able to convince me I'm wrong here. Why it seems messy to me, and that was the calamity that happened was just sloppy magic on Doctor Strange's part. He says. He's basically explaining what his plan is while he's doing the spell. He's like, all right, I'm going to make it so that the whole world forgets about Peter Parker. Like you're doxing at the start of the film. We're going to undo all the doxing. Nobody's going to know who Spider-Man is. Let's get it going. And then, Parker has already said, he's already said, but he has to reiterate, but what about my girlfriend and my best friend and my Aunt May, and we had a team, they all knew I was Spider-Man and it was great, and can we just go back to that? And he's like, you're changing the spell. It's like, mate, have a conversation with the kid before you change the universe about how everyone's brain in the universe is going to react to this guy,
including your own, if it
including
was
himself.
Option, if it was an option, it should have been talked about. The worst salesman in the world, you always talk about the optional extras.
Yeah, so he's like, all right, let's get this going. And then he's like, well, what about this?
He's like, nice knowing you, kid. And just
perfectly sensible question. He's like,
wait.
Oh my God. And he's making a more complex version of the spell. And then it's completely ridiculous, totally sloppy writing, I thought. I just like, what is this? Is this the character of Doctor Strange? He's someone who just runs to the finish line. That isn't what we found with the Doctor Strange film. He will sit outside and die of exposure before he gives up on his passion. That doesn't sound like someone without patience and without the foresight to think that there might be some nuance here with changing the whole universe's memory at once.
No, that's not something that can be defended. It's very, very poor. And like I said, that's an example of the clunkiness of bringing this calamity together. You wouldn't have this coalescence of the multiverse happen.
There's just two villains that didn't need to be there at all. They just appeared to, I don't know, stroke off the fanboys, gratify the nostalgia. I don't know what they were there for, to be honest. There's the Sandman villain and the Lizard Man villain. Yeah. One's made of sand, the other's made of lizard. And that's the complexity of their characters. And the Sandman is just there because he wants to, his motivation is, I just want to go home and I'm not picking sides and I don't care and I'm going to peace out and I'm not really going to fight Spider-Man or anybody else. I'm not really going to do much. I'm going to appear later and be a nuisance for a second, but otherwise I didn't need to be here. And then the Lizard Man, even worse. It's I don't even understand what his motivation was, except apparently in the first film where he was the villain, he just wanted to turn everybody into lizards. But this way, in this movie, he's not really about that. He's totally trying to kind of funny how he says everyone should be lizard. He's
still on that. He's still proselytizing lizard man status.
He can't be dissuaded from the lizard situation. But again, Willem Dafoe and Jamie Foxx and to a lesser extent Doc Ock. I've always forgotten how to say that actor's name. I apologize.
Alfred Molina.
Alfred Molina. To be honest, my favorite of the original Spider-Man trilogy villains is.
Most people would say that.
Yeah. And to be honest, when I saw him, I was like, oh, thank God, he doesn't look too different. His hair's weird, a little. Yeah. He mostly looks like how he did in Spider-Man 2.
He's a bit older. It's been 20 years. Yeah.
It has been, but the first thing he says is the line from the could you give him another line? He pops up and he's like, the power of the sun in the palm of my hand. It's is this what happens when people go crazy and become villains? They just say the same thing over.
Well, you got to remember, he was pulled from that moment. He had that. That was him. It's imagine just blinking and you're in a different area in the city. And you're like, hang on a second. Where's the sun and the power of the sun in my hands?
So we're to believe that all these guys that have come across exactly at the moment.
Well, that's what they describe. They're talking about that when they're behind the cells. They're just Electro's just I was at the power station absorbing the power, and then and then I was here. They're in their penultimate villainous moment. So they're same for the Lizard Man, same for Electro, same for the others. They're in that moment.
what he's saying then makes sense.
But yeah,
it plays. But like Spider-Man didn't kill him. Like Spider-Man fixed him. He like got through and you know, Doc Ock took power of his mind back over the tentacles. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's fine. The comic book nerds and the Marvel nerds can battle that out to the end of time. That's fine. I don't really care too much, except that my point was, when everybody else is coming through, I'm like, oh, I don't want this. Like, they're old now. I don't. This isn't good for me. Like, I love these movies and I have nostalgia for them, but the way to respect that is to go and watch them again. Like, go and watch Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 again, even 3.
Even 3, even though. Yeah.
I don't love seeing these actors 20 years after the fact come back and say their lines again. I don't know. Maybe other people love it. I didn't. But that could just be me. That could just be it's a me thing, not a it is not good for the movie thing. But to my point when we got cut off was basically just there were too many villains. A couple of them really didn't need to be there. I don't know why they were there, but the only other point I've got, and then I'll just throw it to you guys again, was why did they do Into the Spider-Verse credits in the credit sequence? They did a
I
thought that too. I was like, I'm getting very much
animated drawing stuff.
Spider-Verse.
They did the animated drawing, kaleidoscopic sequence in the credits with the rap and things. It's like, this isn't this Spider-Man. This isn't any of these Spider-Man. This is a completely.
I want to say that's the Sony stamp, because I'm pretty sure Into the Spider-Verse was a Sony.
I think Homecoming lent into that, right? Like, you know, school book drawing, you know, graphic style. So maybe they're just continuing that. So, yeah.
Been in the last 2, Shadowless Edge says. I don't off the top of my head remember if they've done the animated stuff in the other Home movies.
Far From Home. I will say, just to your point about there being too many villains, that's kind of that's like
double postcards. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, the whole and this is what I think it's Luke, Jason Hendricks' old mate. He said that it's the Rogues Gallery, and I think he said the same thing about Spider-Man. I might be totally misquoting him, but like Spider-Man has a lot of enemies. He has a lot of relatively mid-tier enemies, like guys like the Sandman, the Shocker, like a lizard guy, and things like that. And the Rhino, and like talking, like you have some interaction where he's talking about some of the villains that he's kind of had. I'm surprised that we didn't have Vulture show up in this the Michael Keating one, but I suppose
he's you can't pull him from a different universe. He's dead.
That's true. Although he must exist if there's an infinite number of multiverses.
True.
Then the moment where he's being thwarted at the plane, that was his ultimate undoing. Anyway, the whole Spider-Man thing is that there's lots of villains, and it's more than he can handle, which is why he needs his secret identity. The whole point of his secret identity is to protect his loved ones from all of these villains that he has to face, and he's always juggling fighting them off and protecting and having a normal life and trying to live in these two worlds, and not always succeeding at both. Like his personal relation, and that's the Sam Raimi Spider-Man captures that perfectly. His personal relationship with MJ is totally derailed by him trying to live in two worlds, and stuff. So it's a part of the whole identity of Spider-Man. I understand why they do it. I kind of agree. Some of the villains were a little bit on the weaker side. I loved the idea of Electro and the stuff that he had to say about like the power, like feeling different or tasting different, and he likes it. And then like he sees the arc reactor, and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. Yeah, it's maybe from his universe it's like slightly phased differently, or AC something. Or I don't know, but yeah, kind of cool. Did you guys notice the bad CG?
Yeah, there was a fair bit.
Nothing jumps to mind.
There was a particular fight maneuver between Spider-Man and Goblin where he like flips him over and
I did notice
does
that.
like a power bomb move, and
Yeah.
it's like, ugh, gross. That was like very, very CG. You could see the wires, and then you could, I don't know, you can see the wires. You could see that it was all rigged and wired and whatever. But yeah, a bunch of other things that were just CG that was like, ugh, gross. You could tell that wasn't there when they filmed that. But
a lot of the reptile stuff, a lot of the action sequences that had the lizard man were a little bit like that, a bit clunky.
I thought the sand and the electricity together, that looked great.
That looked pretty good.
Yeah,
that was fairly spectacular.
Like the lighting and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and the hand-to-hand stuff I didn't love as well. Like, there's in these Tom Holland Spider-Man, there hasn't been a lot of like the kung fu, like the real cool acrobatic stuff.
Not
as much as the
other
Spider-Mans.
Amazing Spider-Man did that really well from memory with Garfield. I really enjoyed
But
that.
yeah, this one wasn't really great. It was just lots of swinging and colliding with things, swinging more. But I don't know, just lots of swinging.
Yeah,
I get it. Spider-Man swings.
Wow, I did not expect to defend this movie in this review.
I liked the film.
I know you did. I think there's a lot of missing the forest through the trees here. I don't hear the Cumberbatch thing, Ben. And I'm very glad I don't, because I can imagine how it would ruin it for you. I will agree though that I think the humor was hit and miss, and I would even lean towards mostly miss in some instances. I think towards the end of the film, when certain characters are quipping between one another, it's very, very humorous. I really enjoyed that. But there were moments, and I've seen the film twice now, that landed flat with an audience who is there in the first week and who loves these characters. And they didn't land in a great way. So I thought that the humor in, I'd say, the first two acts was probably the weakest part. On the villain thing, I understand, it's hard to juggle that many, and for sure Sandman and Lizard are definitely the lesser explored villains in this one. And I totally understand the criticism that they don't need to be there. I think they fulfill the role, particularly with Sandman, in terms of bouncing off Electro and providing that development of his character arc and where his motivations are going. But that could be fulfilled by anyone. I think for the most part, in the instance of Sandman, here is there to provide a different dynamic to the action, an interesting power, an interesting layer of depth to the action. You can't say that about Lizard. So I really think that he didn't need to be there at all.
Did you notice too, Shane? I mentioned this when your power went out, that they've changed Sandman to the point where it feels like what they intended with this movie was that he's constantly a sand structure. He can't just look human. Like in Spider-Man 3, he can look like a dude.
He can look like a dude.
Like with his green shirt with those black stripes. I remember the costume and or the outfit he was in when he fell into the sand collider or whatever it was.
Collider something, yeah.
By the way, love that joke where the villains are talking about how they became.
Careful where you fall.
Yeah, it's like, I fell into a vat of electric eels. I fell into a super collider. I guess it really matters where you fall then, doesn't it? I love that.
It's just poking fun at the tropes of villain origin stories, right?
Yeah.
Again, splitting hairs, but I felt like they changed the Sandman guy because, to be honest, I thought they did it because they couldn't get the same actor again. But they did. It is him, and he looks exactly like he does look a second.
He has not aged a day.
Maybe they did the CGI reverse age thing that they're so good at. But,
potentially,
I don't know. But he's not actually there. He's just always in sand golem mode throughout the film, and I just thought. Again, I just thought that it was because they couldn't get the actor or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was just because they didn't want to confuse the audience.
Right. Yeah. It's like, who's the sand guy now? We've lost track because he's not sand anymore. On the point around the relationship between Peter and Strange, I think that's just like the fact that it wasn't fleshed out any further than what it ended up, or where it started at the very beginning of the film and at the end of Endgame. It's just the nature of where this story arc takes us. It's Doc Strange saying, "Hey, yes, I'm going to help you because you've been through enough. Let's see what we can do together." Okay, yep. I and you fucked up this spell. Mostly Strange. Let's put that to bed. Yeah. And then he just gets incredibly frustrated. He's like, "Look, there are a couple of bad guys out and about. this is your problem now. You're a superhero. Go take care of it. Now, to your point, Ben, like, I'm not sure what else more important matters he might have on his hand, but I don't think it is. I know it's a massive movie sin in that sense. Yes, when things go to shit later on, and it's a matter of saving the multiverses as they exist. I think it is on Strange to come in and try and save the day, but I think for the most part, like, it does a good job of, it does a serviceable job of sort of separating those two by the midway through the second act, or actually going into the second act, and saying, okay, this is now a Spider-Man story. And that is my favorite part about this film, and why I think it is the strongest Spider-Man MCU film by a long stretch, is it's hitting all those beats. Terry, you described it perfectly. They continue to crush Tom Holland as the perfect Peter Parker and Spider-Man, and this film is just ticks all the boxes of what I love about superhero films. Parker is being a superhero. He is saving the day. He is rescuing people as Doc Ock is throwing cars off a bridge. He is leaping in front of Green Goblin grenades to save his loved ones. And we'll get into spoilers later, but and to your point, character, around his story arc here, his character arc, is that he's doing some of the most heroic things any MCU character has done in the 27 movies by the end of this film. And I love that. I love that somehow they've managed to, as an audience member, have me invested in the stakes of this film and be feeling for these characters, when a couple of films ago, 3 billion people were wiped off the face of the planet. Like, how much greater can the stakes be in the MCU? But they've managed to pivot in a way that is important to this character, and it matters to me because I love Peter Parker, and I'm so connected to this character. So I think it nails what it means to be a superhero film in the same way that all the Avengers films do as well. And I think it's just a fantastic character arc for him. I love actually, no, I want to transition to spoilers soon, so I'll save that point. But I think that's the biggest compliment I can pay this film, is that it nails what it means to be a superhero film. From a superhero saving the public, and also superhero protecting his loved ones and doing what is right, and what, giving up, things that, like, what am I trying to say here? Just like, doing the right thing, doing the best for the greater good. So I'm stumbling over words. I want to try and get to spoilers, but anyway, Terry.
It's like what Steve Rogers said. He's like, you're not the one to make the sacrifice play. Like, lay your body against the wire. Like, Peter Parker is.
Yeah. Like, it's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, that character core expanded on a global scale. And that's what I really, really love about this movie.
I think that maybe the reason that Wonder Woman got 2 more points for the Metacritic score is the theme song, Shane. Like the Wonder Woman theme.
Oh, right.
Movie. So memorable. I can't tell you what the Spider-Man theme these movies are.
I definitely know, like, the epic moments.
Every time I hear it, I'm like, yeah, Spider-Man. I can't think of it.
I will say, and that was, clear in my mind when I was watching Wonder Woman fresh off, 2 viewings of this film, was the, for the most part, Wonder Woman was saying all these things, right? She's talking about the importance of saving lives, but very few instances you see her doing that. You don't see her, a bit of it happens in the village, towards the end of the second act, and she's obviously, trying to save a lot of people by averting disaster. But that's the point that we've, the point raised, even I can recall when we reviewed Batman vs Superman way back in the day, is that DC never humanizes that motivation. And so the one thing that MCU, for the most part, I want to say gets right 90% of the time in these films. And I think this is a shining example of that. So anyway, if there aren't any further thoughts, maybe we can transition into spoiler talk now, because I do want to get into the enjoyment that came from having a few other characters join the fray. So I'm going to throw up the spoiler warning in the top right, and excuse me for one moment while I change and edit the stream title. Terry, I might throw it to you. What did you think of other characters joining the fray in one Tobey Maguire and another Andrew Garfield?
I liked it. It makes sense because, like, the premise of the spell is that it's centered around the identity of Peter Parker. It's touching on this multiverse of well, yeah, it's touching on the multiverse, so it makes sense that if it's bringing the villains, it might also bring some of the Peter Parkers. And so I did enjoy the arc of pulling them in. It helps address the numerical disadvantage that Tom Holland's Peter Parker is at with the number of villains that he's facing. The cinema that I was in erupted into a lot of what sounded like teenage women. Kind of wooing. I mean, like when Simon Garfield came through.
Andrew Garfield.
Like,
yeah.
Sorry, Andrew Garfield.
Simon Garfunkel.
Simon Garfunkel is my brain. Yeah, I think I just had an aneurysm. Anyway, Andrew Garfield comes through. It was just all of these woos, and I'm like,
amazing.
Like
happened for me as well on
really
night of release. Yeah, for both of them. Yeah,
but it's
for both of them.
Happened for Doc Ock. Like there were cheers and woos for Doc Ock and Green Goblin. Yeah.
I am just not connected to the humanity
I don't
anymore.
remember them cheering. I think there was cheers for Doc Ock, but there weren't cheers for. No, the other way around. I think everyone's seen the trailers, so they knew Doc Ock was coming.
Right, yeah.
And so they
just cheering because he's finally on screen.
I think there were some cheers when they heard the of the goblin coming through with his pumpkin grenades. But yeah, it was awesome seeing him, and the arc of Ned being a magic sensitive kind of person, and like he's got what's it called? It's like the finger ring for winding open the portals.
Yeah.
And he's like focused on Peter Parker, and he does it, and it's just like the wrong Peter Parker, and I found that really funny. And Zendaya's like throwing bread rolls at him, to try and like get him to prove that he's
got the tingle.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, I've got the tingle, just not for bread rolls.
Yeah, just not for bread rolls. And he's like suspended from the ceiling. He's like, really, this
isn't enough for you. Yeah.
This isn't enough. Really, really interesting.
Also, shout out to get some Filipino language in the film, but Tagalog.
Yeah,
that was great.
Yeah,
that was great.
Some Tagalog. And Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man coming in moments later, and like
they're both. When that happened, when Maguire walks through.
I like how it's just like, oh, some random guy.
Yeah, it's like, oh, some
it's like,
dude.
No, I'm a Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's like, I don't really broadcast it. I liked it a lot because it, from a really meta perspective, they had conversations about things that the fans had conversations about, like the web fluid, and Tobey Maguire doesn't have web fluid; it just comes out of his wrist.
Yeah,
and like they had a conversation, and like Tom Holland's Peter Parker is like, does it come out of like other
places?
And it's like,
I think that goes back to the first Spider-Man where Aunt May comes to the door and she's like, "You all right?" And he like cracks it open. He's like, "Yeah, yeah." And there's just webbing everywhere, and it's like, okay, what's he been doing? Yeah.
But it also ties in with the Civil War where Captain Falcon is like, is that coming out of you? Like with the web fluid. It's like I liked that it was that conversation, and that they were talking about the villains that they've faced. They're talking about their experiences, but even how they were introduced to each other.
Sure. Was the Spider-Man, were they snapped from like the end of Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2? Is that where we're supposed to get these guys?
So.
No,
because these guys have had careers for like another 20 years and maybe 5 years or something, 10 years.
Yeah.
Since,
I think I'm not sure how the timelines match up exactly, but yeah, obviously, Tobey Maguire, Peter Parker, is talking about the fact that, he's talking about the future with MJ and like the relationship they managed to establish, like he had to work on it, and he's speaking to Garfield's Parker and saying, stick with it, hang in there, sort of thing, might happen for you. I think it's unclear on the timeline, but no, like with the finger snapping, that's the MCU universe, like it's not happening for multiverses.
The Infinity Stones are for the universe that they're nested within. So the snap wouldn't have impacted those other universes.
I just want to touch on the fact, I totally agree, Terry, like all that comedy between them I really enjoyed. I like the fumbling together because they've never worked as part of the team, and Holland's character saying, I have been in a team, I've been with the Avengers. They're like, oh, that's so cool, who are they? It's like, you don't have Avengers? I love all that stuff.
the trust the tingle, and then the stuff that follows after that was really cool. Seeing them like in the trios like swinging around the scaffolding, and like there's a moment where like one of them is out in front and he webs back to the other two and like
he like whips one and they spin. Yeah, that whole sequence, like they land together, they're sprinting off the scaffolding, they jump in synchronicity. I love also Garfield and how he's doing his best not to be Peter 3. He's just like, I thought he's like, I guess I'm Peter 3.
Yeah, which I mean, he's not even numerically 3, he's 2.
He's 2. Yeah,
Holland should be 3rd. Anyway, it's if you're going chronologically. I liked seeing them. I loved the emotional stuff they brought with them. Like, he's like, we've all experienced this loss. He's like, my MJ, I couldn't save her. And then like the quote of the great power responsibility quote, and like he finishes the quote, he's like, how did you hear this? Like, Uncle Ben said it the day that he died. And like, Peter Parker doesn't have an Uncle Ben, he has an Aunt May, even though they both have Aunt Mays as well that survive Uncle Ben. It's just like they have this contribution to his growth as a person, as he's going through this gut-wrenching loss of Aunt May. And yeah, I loved seeing them in that kind of, it's almost like a paternal fraternal relationship. They're bringing like, no, it's not paternal, it's definitely fraternal. They're like brothers. They're older brothers that are coming and like, look, dude, we've been through what you're going through. I know that might sound cheap, but here are the facts. Like, and he's just like, oh wow, like I've got support. I've got someone who understands what I'm going through.
Yeah, and that's why I think like this movie deserves credit, in the sense that this isn't just, placating fanboys. Like, it totally is the fan service, and they wouldn't be doing it if that weren't the case. But they've crafted a story where, that their appearance has meaning. It impacts Holland's, Parker's character progression, and it ties it all together so neatly. I do want to bring up something that Cameron Shadowless Edge mentions earlier that I do want to disagree on, and that he mentions Aunt May taking Uncle Ben's great power line was much worse. We're talking about earlier, just rehashing a lot of these ideas from previous films. I'm always of the mind that just because something's been done one way doesn't mean that has to be the case forever and a day. I think that like that core line isn't intrinsic to Uncle Ben. It's intrinsic to the character of Spider-Man. It's intrinsic to his core values, his core belief, and what he represents as a character in this universe. So the fact that Aunt May says it, to me, lands equally as impactfully as anyone else in other important person in his life saying it as well. So I didn't mind that. I think it's just such a core theme to the character of Spider-Man that it popping up again from a different character doesn't really bother me. But yes, I'll agree, Cameron. The amazing moment, Toby calling Garfield amazing, was very sweet as well.
I thought that was nice. I had to explain that to Jen because I don't think she's seen the amazing.
Oh, the amazing,
things.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, like I totally see like a lot of the criticisms you guys have mentioned, but overall, like, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Like, there's a reason why I leaped at the opportunity to go see it again. I was sitting next to Will, and he was, I was kind of hoping for a jump out of his chair moment, like Cap wielding Mjolnir for the first time. We didn't quite get it, but he got very excited.
You get excited with the Statue of Liberty holding the Cap shield?
No one did. No.
Yeah, I thought that was just an atrocious idea. I was like, thank God that thing gets broken off.
Yeah, that was horrendous. Any final thoughts, gents, on this one before we wrap it?
I don't mean to sound like I didn't enjoy it. I had a really emotional experience watching this film. Like, I really felt for Peter Parker. I will say, I kind of feel like the moment where he's saying goodbye, because the crescendo of the film is, he's like, the original version of the spell will fix this problem.
Again, the retconning, right?
Yeah. And he's like, that means everyone, including me, like everyone. And he's like, no alterations. He's like, do it, but let me go say my goodbyes. And where he's saying,
going to return you to the Sony IP. That's what he should have said.
Yes. It kind of feels like that, but you've got Tom Holland staring down the barrel of the camera. He's looking at Zendaya at MJ, but like he's literally staring down the lens of the camera and saying, these like goodbye lines like to us, and I'm like, is that actually happening? And then like it carries on a little bit. And
I think a sequel's been confirmed.
It's so strange, and it makes sense that it would, because of the like leaving behind like the first post-credits screen where you have the character of Venom, Tom Hardy's Venom, who's not even connected to Spider-Man at all in the Venom movies, happens to be pulled into Peter Parker's universe because I guess he must be related to one of the Peter Parkers, but not this version of the Venom, the one played by that 70s show guy.
Yeah,
oh
we know you're talking about. Yep.
His name, it doesn't matter. He's the Venom anyway, but he's there, and a piece of the symbiote's left behind. I'm like, okay, that's a doorway to bring the symbiote into the MCU. I don't hate that. I like the character of Venom. In fact, I like the character of Venom a lot. But it made me second guess my thought that this will be the last Tom Holland Spider-Man film. But yeah, I really enjoyed the film. I would watch it again. I just wanted to be balanced in my review and feedback of the film. It's not perfect, but definitely a very strong offering.
Yeah. No, where it's landing right now in the IMDb top 250, like, no way in hell I'd put it that high.
Yeah, that made me sick when I heard that.
Yeah. Did you say it's
that's number 8 greatest film of all time.
So it's not just top 250, it's in the top 10.
It's in the top 10 films of all time.
All time.
That's fanboys, upweighting the vote.
In this movie, it's like there are movies that every actor in this movie has been in that's better than this movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
But oh boy, I didn't love it. I don't want to be the guy who just hates all of the superhero movies, but I just hate all the superhero movies lately.
Yeah,
it's quite true. That was the one before the Eternals.
Shang-Chi.
Yeah, Shang-Chi was alright.
There you go.
Oh,
yes, you don't hate it. That's alright.
Yeah, didn't hate it.
You don't get enthused for them, Ben. Let's say that much.
I will say that I heard a quote from Tarantino talking about just cinema in general, American cinema in general, and how it used to do, or it does, it currently does these things that are just like situational movies, which is this all the superhero movies are situational. Their job is to make you ponder the question, oh, what if I was Spider-Man? How cool would that be? What would I do? That's entirely a movie. Like, just make a Spider-Man origin, have him do some cool shit, save the girl, call it a day. And then this is just like such a fucking mess. There's magic and there's time travel and there's interdimensionality stuff that half doesn't make sense with, like, why is Venom there? He doesn't know who Peter Parker is. Anyway, I don't want to go
this Venom
back down that rabbit hole again, but there's good situational movies out there where you're like, man, that's great. I'm gonna daydream about that for a week. How cool was that when this, like, that's the essence that they're trying to get. How cool was that when X and Shadowless Edge has been saying it like in the chat the whole time. Like, I loved when so and so said this to such and such. It's like, that's fine. It's just it's messy. The movie was so messy around all these cool moments. Like, it should just be crystal clear and super cool. Like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, so cool. I love, that's like my favorite Spider-Man, and just so damn awesome to do exactly what it does in that realm of, wouldn't it be cool if and sorry, one last point, which did you guys pivot your head a little bit with the Spider-Verse reference when Max says maybe one day there'll be a black Spider-Man?
I do like like the whole lead up to that joke. Just like, you're from Queens, you're helping out, you're for the people.
I thought you were black.
I kind of happy you're black. That was fun. There was one point.
Electro had done a little bit more than just hover there and shoot electric bolts. Like, just literally stationary.
Yeah.
And mate, you can fly apparently. So
actually, mentioning that, I think I love the whole math trumping magic. In the Mirrorverse.
He's like, this is geometry.
Yeah. You know what's cool? The magic? Maths. Yeah. And I love. I think actually the Doc Ock fight scene was probably the most interesting in the sense that just like there's so much dynamics going on. He's got like, you know, the concrete pipes being thrown over and that sort of thing, and you know, again, it goes back to this like finding a bad guy, we're trying to save the day, protect these people, this, that, and the other. Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
It was definitely the best use of that shadow kaleidoscope world. That
no, 100%. I was very critical of that in the first Doctor Strange, where because we're completely removed from reality at this point, I have no sense of stakes. I was like, what's real? Are you actually falling right now? Are you in danger? I can't tell because everything's a fucking mirror.
Which is clearly why it didn't happen in Infinity War.
Yeah.
Like, they threw everything at Thanos that you could have imagined except for that dimension melody thing. Like, let's just have him fall down infinite spirals of himself or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, see what he can do with that.
Yeah.
Anyways, I totally agree. That was pretty damn cool fight scene. I didn't love how he was quoting formula in his head when he's running around.
All right.
I didn't love that, but that's just nitpicking. That's just I'll own that.
Yeah.
That was a cool moment.
One last point. I do love that the end of my cinematic experience with this film, I'm in the same feeling that I come away from with Far From Home, in the sense that Mysterio reveals Peter Parker's identity to the world, and in my head as a fan and as an audience member, I'm now, holy cow, what is going to happen next? At the end of this one, you know, after, you know, the whole world, you know, no longer knows that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Holy cow, what is going to happen next? He's literally on his own in an apartment, going to try to make a rent each week. For me, how painful was it when he was at Aunt May's grave and Happy walks up and is like, how'd you know? I'm like, painful must that be? Like, again, back to my original point, just the heroics of Peter Parker in this film. For me, that's what elevates it above all the others.
So you're like off grid now, right? Because there's like no record of him ever existing. Like,
yeah, I did start to think about the nitty gritty like that. Like, surely they're like, is he still enrolled? Like, is he in MIT?
Does he have a birth certificate? I don't understand that whole thing.
Yeah, like he's surely he's got, you know, he's been photographed and he's got his name attached at the school he was enrolled in. So anyway, that's nitpicking at that point.
It's a spell that undoes a bunch of reality stuff. I wondered about like the implications. Like, so how did you know Aunt May? It's like, how do you not know? Look, like Peter lived with Aunt May. Lived with her. So for Happy to know Aunt May, she has to know Peter Parker.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
he can't not. But the only remedy to that is that he doesn't know Aunt May either.
Yeah, it feels like a real Xena warrior princess or wizard did it kind of thing, where there are probably 1,000 things where it's like, if he didn't exist at all, then this couldn't have happened, and Thanos came, and that couldn't be the reality we're in, and it's like, a wizard did it. It's fine.
It's like a bunch of the stuff that happened, including with Infinity War and Endgame, would be undone by people not knowing who Peter Parker is. And only knowing who Spider-Man is. But Spider-Man was present at those things, so it's I would have been fine if they just forgot his name. It's like, what's your name again? I know you, but I don't know you. Like, anyway, that doesn't matter. A wizard did it. I like that, Ben. I do like that a wizard did it.
Anyway, that has been our review of Spider-Man No Way Home. Apologies for the cutout. I'm going to have to stitch this together in YouTube a bit later. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. You can catch it yourselves in cinemas. Help, this little indie film that could. It's only made $600 million so far.
It's the number one on the IMDb 250.
Yeah, exactly. Needs your help. It's only at number 8. Go rate it a 10 out of 10 on IMDb.